Welcome to Little Lantern Wisdom. I'm Emily. I'm really glad you're here today. I've been thinking about something that can feel confusing in relationships. Why certain people react so strongly when they begin to lose control. In some narcissistic patterns, control is not just preference or personality. It becomes a form of emotional protection. And when that protection is challenged, the response can feel surprisingly intense. So come sit with me for a few minutes. Let's talk about it slowly. When someone fears losing control, what they are often fearing is the loss of a structure that keeps them emotionally regulated. In narcissistic dynamics, control can create a predictable sense of power, a way to maintain admiration, avoid vulnerability, and steer the narrative. It provides stability without requiring deep accountability. When that control is interrupted, through a boundary, independence, or even calm disagreement, it can feel destabilizing, not because you are being cruel or unreasonable, but because autonomy introduces uncertainty. And uncertainty can feel threatening to someone who relies on dominance to feel secure. You might notice that small boundaries provoke outsized reactions. A simple, "I'm not available tonight," becomes an accusation. A measured correction turns into a character critique. The response feels disproportionate because the issue was never only about the moment itself, it was about influence being reduced. In many narcissistic patterns, love and control gradually become intertwined. Warmth flows when compliance is present. Distance or criticism appears when independence emerges. Over time, this can create a subtle conditioning effect, where peace feels conditional and approval feels earned rather than mutual. Another common pattern is narrative control. After conflict, the story may shift, facts become blurred, your memory is questioned, accountability becomes evasive. Maintaining the perception of superiority or innocence becomes more important than shared understanding. Control of the story becomes control of reality. You may also notice escalation when you remain steady. If you respond calmly instead of emotionally, the intensity may increase. If you refuse to argue, the accusations may sharpen. Emotional reaction restores their sense of power, while calm removes the leverage they are accustomed to using. At its core, control in narcissistic relationships often masks insecurity. When someone has built their identity around admiration, being right, or holding emotional influence, equality can feel destabilizing. A truly balanced relationship requires shared power, shared decision-making, shared accountability, shared vulnerability. For someone who equates control with safety, that kind of equality can feel like exposure. Releasing control would mean tolerating the discomfort of not being superior, not always steering the narrative, not always being the emotional center. And for someone deeply uncomfortable with insecurity, that loss of dominance can feel more frightening than loneliness. Understanding this does not excuse harmful behavior, but it can help you stop personalizing the reaction. When you calmly assert a boundary, you are not attacking them. You are introducing balance. And balance disrupts systems that relied on one-sided influence. If the response feels sharp, exaggerated, or emotionally manipulative, it may not be because you did something wrong. It may be because your steadiness signals that the dynamic is shifting. In those moments, it can be tempting to soften your boundary just to restore temporary calm. You may find yourself over-explaining, apologizing for normal needs, or adjusting your tone to make your independence feel less threatening. But peace that requires self-erasure is not true peace. It is short-term quiet purchased at the cost of your long-term stability. A calmer path forward often looks less dramatic than people expect. It is not about overpowering control or proving a point. It is about consistent, clear boundaries paired with limited emotional reactivity. When you stop participating in power struggles and instead remain steady, you remove the fuel that control depends on. This may not immediately transform the other person, but it does transform your position within the dynamic. If tonight's reflection felt familiar, remember this. Control begins to lose its grip when you no longer trade your peace for approval. You are allowed to disagree. You are allowed to set limits. You are allowed to exist without shrinking in order to maintain someone else's comfort. You deserve connection that does not require constant negotiation of your worth. You deserve partnership that feels collaborative rather than competitive. And you deserve relationships where boundaries are respected rather than treated as threats. Because you are enough. Until next time, I'll keep the lantern lit for you.